I'm excited to jump into the research that we have done recently. And so let's see how screen share works. All right. So, as you know, we're gathered here today to talk about circularity. And in particular, the lens that we're going to look at circularity through is through a specific set of startup companies that over the past few quarters have been growing the fastest. And we're going to look at the strategic moves that they have been taking so that we can learn
Yep, adapt.
from and adapt them. Uh, let's see, Eugene, it looks like you may have a live mic, and Darby, I'm going to ask you to keep an eye on that where folks need mute support. Um,
Photo. Yeah, I muted Eugene. It's not personal, Eugene.
it's not personal at all. Well said. Well said. All right, so let's jump in and real quickly, I want to introduce folks to us, to Earth Catalyst. The simple version is that we're a consulting practice for green tech and sustainability organizations. And that's the simple way to explain it. The complicated way to explain it is a challenge, of course, and something that I'm working on all the time. But this is the current iteration of how I'm explaining it visually. All of us are working in fields with an incredible amount of noise and data and chaos and information overwhelm. And we harness that information, we run it through a series of processes. You're going to see some examples of that today. And out the other end comes simplified insights and opportunities and connections and lessons learned that can be cross-applied. That's another way to describe our practice here at Earth Catalyst. And we and I, over the years, have worked with a wide variety of different organizations, especially in the tech world, but tech, climate, social justice. Uh, all of these have been projects that I have led. Earth Catalyst as an organization is relatively new, but it's we're doing the same kind of work largely in spirit that that we've done with these organizations over the years. And on the right-hand side of the screen there, you can see a little screenshot of our case studies page where we describe in detail some of the projects that we've done with different organizations over the years. So what kinds of things do we do with organizations, whether you're working on growing revenue or reducing risk or reducing costs in traditional commercial terms? Ultimately, we want to help you grow your impact both in our consulting engagements and in our community calls like this and all the work that we do. That's our motivation, and this is our modus operandi. We take a whole bunch of information, we run it through processes and outcomes, simplified, actionable insights and opportunities. The easiest way to access that is our free newsletter, where we use artificial intelligence, of course, to recommend a handful of updates either each day or each week that we think would be most relevant to your specific interests. Lessons learned from peers and organizations around the world. So if anybody here hasn't subscribed to that, we would love for you to do so. It's a great way to keep in touch. All right, let's talk circularity. So, from our point of view, I want to ask the question, why circularity? And for me, there's really two ways to answer that. Extrinsically, in the sustainability and green tech world, I feel like circularity in particular is at an inflection point where it's growing fast, but it's far from peaked. It's not as high profile as solar or wind or batteries, but it's coming on strong, and it offers really high leverage to change the world, to shift away from the take, make, waste paradigm into a circular paradigm. Feels like a high leverage place to focus. I'm so glad to meet all of you who are specializing in that in particular. And then intrinsically, we're doing it because it just feels like the right thing to do. It just feels intuitively, intrinsically important to move to a circular model. So I'm going to walk through some startup companies that have been growing fast, and I want to tell you why these ones, how we selected them. So we started with a big list of 200 circularity companies that we sourced to consider companies that were currently hiring, that were being covered in the news, and on various high quality best of lists. We looked at some best of lists that we didn't think were particularly high quality, and we didn't consider those. We looked for good ones. So we that's how we got 200 plus circularity companies to consider, and then we narrowed that down to the top 10. Honestly, uh, there's 11, uh, but hopefully that'll be okay based on their performance over Q4 of last year and Q1 of this year, the last 3 months, the last 6 months in total, and in particular, they were selected based on two criteria: their headcount growth percentage per LinkedIn, were they adding people to their teams, and news coverage of their announcements. Uh, were they getting a lot of traction in the work that they were doing? And a lot of this whole sector is largely led by small organizations. And some organizations were so small that the headcount growth would just get blown out of proportion. So we really focused on in this analysis companies that had at least 10 employees. Uh, and but we hope that what they're doing that's working will be useful to people who are at any stage, and some of the organizations are much larger than that. So that's how we narrowed down to our 11 companies that we focused on, and they really are outliers. So when we look at the growth rate over the last 6 months, uh, only 26% of all the circularity startups that we looked at appear to have grown at least 10% over the last 6 months. I mean, it's hard to start a company, and it's a major investment to add people to your team. But we're going to focus on the ones that have been doing that over on the far right here of this chart, and that have been making connections publicly, visibly with their news and announcements. So, why are we looking at those companies? To glean insights that can help accelerate anyone in the circularity sector. So we really hope that what we've observed and what you'll observe from these organizations, that there'll be tips and tricks that you can borrow, be inspired by, put into your own toolbox, and accelerate the work that you're doing in this and related sectors. All right, so let's look and see who those organizations are. I'm going to just go through the list first, and then we'll dive deep into each of them. Starting, in you'll see the order, but we're going to talk about AMP Robotics that works in the sortation space. We're going to talk about Raylo in IT circularity, Cyclic Materials in magnet recycling. Then Humble Sustainability in IT recycling, Epoch Biodesign, plastics recycling, Amphastar Biosurfactants, Scilib battery recycling, Industrial Labs, which is actually an analyst and consulting services organization in circularity, and Altilium battery recycling. Siloxium industrial waste, and To Zero battery recycling. So those are the companies that we're going to dive deep onto. That's a lot of them. It's going to be fast. It's going to be intense. We do want to include some honorable mentions as well. Some groups that were maybe a little bit smaller or almost made the list, including Circuland, who are building materials passports for the built environment. We thought was really cool and small, and AirBuild that does for to be succinct, biopanels, direct air capture, and EdgeK is here with us from AirBuild today. AirBuild is small, growing fast, and we wanted to highlight their work here as well. And finally, Archive Resale in the textiles and clothing space. They're a technology play, a resale platform focused primarily on uh, clothing, as far as I can tell, and they seem to be the fastest growing company over the last 2 quarters in that space, that market that's so important. So we wanted to mention them as an honorable mention as well. All right. Here's where things are going to get intense. Here, I'm going to not spend a whole lot of time on how the veggie sausage is made, as I like to say, but I do want to share with you our analysis and our methodology. So here's how we're deriving these insights. So first, we're doing some qualitative assessment of earned, owned, and paid media. Over the past 2 quarters of each of these startups, just qualitatively looking at them, analyzing them based on our experience. Second, we're doing some executive strategy analysis using web search with DeepSeek's R1 reasoning model to parse what we might call inferred strategies from the past, present, and future activities of specific executives, including speaking engagements that they're scheduled to have, and et cetera, et cetera. Then this has been an experiment that I'm going to repeat because I really like it. We're doing what I'm calling a synthetic persona dialogue. And you'll see an example of this where we convened circles of 10 relevant synthetic personas for each company. For example, different types of customers or regulators or analysts, academics. And then we had those synthetic personas in an AI platform discuss the firm's product pages, case studies, legal terms, job listings, and other information that's available about them online to discuss what appears to be the strengths and opportunities and challenges of each of these respective companies according to the perspectives of the synthetic personas. And then finally, we did industry level analysis using a tool we call our AI Prism, which is a tool for contextualizing anything through 20 cascading analytical perspectives from. And let me just show you what the Prism looks like. So this is today I'm going to call this our flash analysis system for risk and opportunity discovery. So we pick a topic when we run a Prism, like circular economy, and the Prism breaks that topic down into multiple subtopics, zooms up into a meta topic, looks at the antithesis of the topic, and then runs an analysis of each of those through 20 different cascading lenses, looking at news, history over the last 30 years, all the way up to history over the last 10,000 years, academic research. Some of my favorite lenses that we look at are the most common causes of failure of projects in a particular sector, under the belief that if we can identify the most common causes of failure and avoid them, we can increase our odds of success. We will do all kinds of different analyses, financial analyses, maturity models, et cetera, et cetera. And then the output is essentially an ebook that we can read through. We can drop into Google Notebook LM and turn into a podcast to listen to, and it's a really great way to quickly go deep into these topics. So we use those as well here for our analysis. Now, if we were working with any of these companies in particular, which we aren't yet, uh, we would do all of the above and more. We would be setting up some really intense monitoring. We did some pretty lightweight monitoring over the past month or so to see what was coming up after we began our analysis. But we would set up a thorough monitoring system. We would talk to salespeople at these organizations and get info and lessons learned from deals they won and deals they lost with customers. We would talk to independent analysts and influencers and thought leaders in their market about these companies, their competitors, what their customers are looking for, et cetera, and probably more because every engagement we do with every market every time is different. We've got some common plays we run, but it's all bespoke with the engagements that we do. All right, so let's dive in and gather some insights from each company. What you're going to see today is we're going to start with a very thorough analysis of the first few, and then we're going to winnow down and pick up the pace as we go through 11. So if you're daunted by the degree of detail in the first couple, don't worry, we're going to focus on narrow highlights as we proceed through this big list of 11. So let's start with the first company we're going to look at and see what are they doing, what's been working. That's AMP, which is an AI-powered waste valorization company. They do garbage recycling sortation, essentially. These are some shots of their value proposition, their product, a view into the AMP universe. and they have increased their headcount by 12% over the last 6 months. They're a relatively big company. The biggest driver of their growth was a $91 million Series D financing in December, bringing them up to 245 million in total investment. So they're, are they a startup? Well, they haven't gone public, but that's certainly what they're driving towards. But it seems to me, based on a qualitative analysis and synthetic personas and other analyses, that the three other than their financing, the primary drivers of their recent growth have been credible claims to technical superiority, where they're really coming in, they're automating entire facilities of garbage sortation. They're seeing really high uptime in chaotic environments. And very interestingly, they have made a shift from selling as a product to selling as a service. They have said that they found that when they sold their garbage sortation technology as a product, when the environment grew into extreme circumstances, either real cold or real hot or other extremes, the performance of the system suffered, became suboptimal. And if the customer was responsible for operating the machinery, that performance really took a hit. So instead, they come in and sell it as a service and do a lot of operation and maintenance themselves, and that seems to have worked really well. They have invested a significant amount of money, it appears, in sponsorships recently. For example, they did a co-branded video, a Business Insider sponsored video with HP on AI in action that got 300,000 views, which is pretty darn good for a B2B video. But you can imagine AI in action, trash sortation, an intuitive and well-produced, effective sponsorship that they've done just recently. And then I really liked their part of their communication strategy is to put their new CEO in front of the camera, in front of interviews, and he is a person who was most recently COO at the giant company Republic Services, and he speaks as a recent convert who can say, traditionally we have in the garbage trash sortation industry, we've been so focused on trucks and labor, but at AMP, we're reimagining where in the value chain the big opportunities are. And we think that there's huge value at the very end of that value chain. So there's something about that new story from a recent convert that I've seen here and at other places that feels really effective in getting media attention, landing conversations. I thought it was great. So those are some recent growth drivers, apparently by AMP. I'm not going to show you the synthetic personas for every organization, but just here for AMP, I'll give you a sample of the kinds of synthetic personas that we convene to discuss all of their online content. And these are very sector specific, recycling facilities managers, et cetera, et cetera. And synthetic personas help provide a comprehensive, multifaceted evaluation framework that evaluates stakeholder priorities, challenges, and human implications often overlooked in technology assessments. At least that's what they told me. I asked them, "Hey, synthetic personas, how would you characterize, the value that you bring to this?" And I really like that. It felt like a long form way of describing the common consulting framework known as MISI, or mutually exclusive, comprehensively exhaustive. And synthetic personas can help us build a mutually exclusive, comprehensively exhaustive analysis. I don't know how mutually exclusive they are, but a related concept. So the synthetic personas looked at AMP and all of their content online, and the things that resonated from all these different points of view were focused on solving labor shortages and improving accuracy, business opportunities created as a result of full recycling services, and the funding and industry leadership. But people in these personas still have likely questions around reliability, the prove the proving out of the business model, and whether this was accessible to smaller communities. So I then took a look at what AMP's customers seem to want, because I feel like that's one of the forms of value that can come from this kind of research, is to identify This company seems to know what its customers want. It's growing fast, and these seem to be there's a lot. I mean, it's a big company, but these are the parts of the value proposition that seem to align best with various personas, media campaigns, et cetera. Um, Labor shortages being the very first one, but you can see what that list is there. And I love the Robot Report was a media outlet that just said their goal is to divert waste from landfills to by using AI to ensure the removal of recyclables and organics. So go AMP. All right, let's talk about the next company. We're going to go into a little less depth on each one, but the next one we're going to talk about is real different. This is Raylo. They are a consumer electronics and IT circularity company. These are some screenshots from Raylo. They're a B Corp, which I think is fantastic, and they really speak to both consumers that want low cost refurbished technology and who are concerned about the linear economy, and they are explicitly advocating for a circular model. They're in London, England. And the key drivers over the last couple of quarters that seem to be working well for them are partnerships offering new business models to larger legacy companies. So, for example, they announced and got a bunch of coverage for a partnership with Sony, powering a new PS5 rental service for that system. They position themselves to consumers as a way to get affordable electronic devices, new phones, new tablets, etc. But really, on the back end, what they're selling is AI-powered credit analysis, and they're acting as intermediaries between a refurbishing service that they contract with and the manufacturers of these goods, and they're diving deep into the credit and market creation aspect of circularity. And one thing that they have done that I just wanted to highlight that I notice here that seems to be working well for them is they're doing some experiments with YouTube Shorts. So their marketing and communication, they've done a lot of different things over the last few years. They've invested a lot in high production videos, which got a lot of views, but probably cost a lot. They've done long form influencer unboxings that didn't perform quite as well. But now, over the last 14 weeks, they've produced 22 shorts about consumer commentary on games, the kinds of games that consumers are playing with the products that they get through Raylo. They've got a real consistent cadence there, and each of those shorts is getting 1,000 plus, sometimes popping up to 40,000 plus views, and that seems to be working well for them because they're sticking with it. And of course, now they're also they're really focusing on expanding from B2B or from B2C into B2B and offering IT circularity for small businesses. They've got a buy now, pay later feature. They've got all kinds of different things. Some of the things that the synthetic personas liked about them included their certification, their work with S&P Global, the fundamental value proposition to customers. But there was also some questions about the company. For example, the retail analyst persona wondered whether the relative price parity between new products that you can buy through Raylo and refurbished ones, there wasn't a real big gap. And so the question was, are they really driving incentivization of consumers to purchase refurbished? And in their branding and marketing, they're still encouraging people to regularly upgrade devices. Um, but they, as a platform, are extending the life of the devices. It's an interesting challenge to create a circular business in a linear world uh, or a linear economy often. So those are thoughts on Raylo. We've got some thoughts on what their customers want as well. But this quote down at the bottom stood out the most, where they said they have fundamentally as a mission to accelerate the transition to circular, but customers and OEMs will only make that transition if it is easy, cost effective, simple. So it's working for Raylo. They're growing fast, and that's what they're doing. All right, let's move on to the next company, uh, who are Cyclic Materials, and they are real different from the previous ones as well. They're creating a circular supply chain for rare earth elements. Here's a view of some cyclic materials, and that top right testimonial sure jumps out, or advocacy from the Amazon Climate Pledge financing cyclic. And they are up in Canada, in Toronto. They've expanded their headcount by 24% over the last 6 months. And it's been driven by big funding and partnerships. So Amazon put money in, Microsoft put in money, and then they have joined a number of international circularity associations. Uh, both general recycling industry type associations and networks, and industry specific ones like the Automotive Circularity Network, and that feels very intriguing and particularly accessible. Not everyone can raise money from Amazon and Microsoft, but those are great networks to have on our collective radars. They are also being driven in no small part, all of this by the trade war situation. China had just imposed export controls over rare earth elements, and they control 93 to 99% of those rare earths globally. And as Cyclic said on LinkedIn, when those announcements were made, we knew this day would come, and we had been planning all along. They're really aligned with demand regulation, scarcity, and international stuff. But I want to highlight one other thing that popped out, and that is from a discussion of high productivity professionals in the Toronto area. The CEO of Cyclic was asked, "What do you do to be so productive and effective?" And he said, "I go for walks outside. It helps take the pressure off and helps me come back and refreshed." And hallelujah. May we extend connect with our extended selves in mind, the trees, the sky, the birds, and it works for the CEO of Cyclic, so maybe it'll work for us too. I wanted to highlight that. So Cyclic obviously is well funded. There's the good news for them as a business is quite clear. And of course, there are some questions that seem to be still remaining based on all of the content that they have published online around the environmental impact still of their work, the technology defensibility. Honestly, the feedstock acquisition. If waste valorization is the name of the game, and what the substances formerly known as garbage are now sources of gold, uh, getting access to it at scale becomes a business challenge. And so Cyclic is actively hiring people to specialize in various forms of feedstock acquisition as their roles. And then, can recycling alone meet the demand for rare earth elements in given electric vehicles and wind farms and consumer electronics? Uh, I think that's still an outstanding question that anyone in circularity in a fast growing tech world probably needs to wrestle with. And by all indications, the things that Cyclic's customers seem to want are security of supply of rare earths, independent of China, sustainable materials for their own ESG reporting requirements, high purity, and then solutions for end-of-life product recycling. Their wind power in particular, but a number of different industries, are trying to uh, figure out how to connect to the larger circular ecosystem, and what to do with their end of life materials. A part of that story, Cyclic wants to be a part of that story. All right, so that's what's working for Cyclic. Let's look at another one. This one is a really interesting company uh, outside of Europe, outside of the US, in Southeast Asia, in the Philippines, in particular. Humble Sustainability is a really neat company with some really dynamic founders, a great seeming company culture, and a real mix of business savvy and commitment to sustainability. So, what appears to be driving Humble's growth, and they've grown 29% in headcount over the last 2 quarters, are these things. First, a strong focus on their business model. They really lead with increasing the value of the products that they are helping businesses resell these IT products through their platform. They say they can increase the value of used electronics by up to 50%. And as they engage in that, they have what's called a take rate of 40%, or they take 40% of the revenue. And that is helping them drive some amount of investment. They've raised just a little bit of money in the Philippines and getting them ready to expand now into new markets. So they started with B2B in their case, unlike Raylo, who started B2C and went to B2B. Humble started in B2B and now they're moving into B2C and they're expanding in from the Philippines into Thailand and Indonesia. And I think a lot of it is made possible by a very dynamic CEO who can speak to his connections to the natural world through his parents. And he does a lot of public speaking, a lot of panels, a lot of interviews, and just is a really high visibility person in the Southeast Asian circular tech startup scene. And I think that opens up a lot of possibilities for Humble. So the things that Humble's customers seem to want are financial value recovery from their unused or outdated IT assets, freeing up space in their warehouses to keep goods moving, and then ESG compliance and reporting. So Humble is working now and will launch soon a dashboard for their customers to analyze and track the emissions reduction impact of their use of Humble's circular IT platform. And all of those things are getting a lot of attention and helping Humble grow its circular impact. All right. Do you notice we're going faster and faster? Here now we're going to look at Epoch Biodesign. They do biological AI turning waste into value. And they're taking what they call formerly unrecyclable plastics and materials and turning them into sources of value using enzymes, AI created enzymes to break down at room temperature these hard to recycle products and then being able to reuse them. Just this quarter, they raised a nice big round of funding, and their founder is pictured there in the bottom right in TechCrunch coverage of that. They have grown 38% over the last 2 quarters. They're headquartered in London, and they're effectively creating a system of industrial symbiosis through enzymatic recycling. I feel like there's a three-part driver, three factors all come together really well for Epoch. Their timing with regard to regulatory tailwinds is clear. California is going to be requiring 65% plastic recycling in a few short years. The EU is mandating textile collection systems for producers, and Epoch is going to make that technologically possible is their goal. Second, the technology story. AI, everyone talks about AI all the time, but in biology, for enzyme design, they talk about how they can drive the equivalent of thousands of years of evolution, all powered by AI in just a short period of research, just coming up with all kinds of different combinatorial possibilities to figure out what what enzymes will work to break down these materials, and not just break them down, but break them down in room temperature environments. So there's substantially limited emissions as a result. And so timing, technology, and then they've got a really strong, compelling story where they've got a young founder that says, "Look, we've got these piles of plastic, and we're going to turn them into value." He tells a straw into gold type story powered by AI, and people love it. And as a result of all of that, this relatively young company has got 40 partnerships across a wide range of different industries all already. All right, let's move on to the next company because we're going to cover 11 of them. The next one is Amphastar. These are all like similar and different in different ways. Circularity is such a broad world. Amphastar produces biosurfactants made from bio-based waste for use in consumer products, in personal care products, and in cleaning products. And their goal is to make biosurfactants mainstream as opposed to fossil fuel derived surfactants. And uh, they're in Belgium. They've grown 31% over the last 6 months. And honestly, as I looked all around all of their materials, ran it through synthetic personas and what have you, it really felt like they're running a pretty straightforward playbook of standard industrial innovation scaling. They have come up with some strong uh, chemistry innovations, and now they're partnering with organizations that need it. They're getting certifications. They're creating bespoke solutions for individual uh, new subsectors, and they're performing they just published a life cycle analysis demonstrating superior climate impacts over incumbents, and they're running the playbook. They just put in a new CEO that has 25 years of experience in the surfactants industry, and uh, yeah, hitting milestones, running sequences, and doing things like demonstrating 75 consecutive days of continuous biomanufacturing. So good for them. That's that's what they're doing. All right, let's move on to the next company that we want to highlight, and that is Scilib. Scilib calls themselves Next Generation Battery Recycling. Here's their current branding there on the left. Uh, Next week, they're going to launch a new website with new branding. Uh, and that is one thing that we haven't seen a lot of among these companies. Their homepages and positioning has not changed a lot over the last couple of quarters. Uh, and I think that's notable. They've got a high-profile CEO who came from the research world and is now really good at fundraising. And it's great to see companies led by women. They've grown 46% over the last couple of quarters. They're in Germany. And it seems to me that their growth is being driven by the fundraising power of Dr. Lillian Schwitsch. Uh, they raised what they say is the largest ever round of financing by a European battery recycling company with participation from corporate ventures at Porsche and Bosch. Their value proposition is focused on industry-leading efficiency, while in terms of resource reuse, while lowering their environmental footprint as well. And they are really good at promoting themselves. So they post on LinkedIn every day with photos, with multiple hashtags. They reshare each other's stuff. They and they get a lot of engagement, which is all quite remarkable because they're from Germany, and typically German corporate executives aren't real into self-promotion, but they're doing it and it's working really well. So that I think is quite remarkable, something to keep in mind. All right, let's look at another company. This one's a real outlier in the set as well. Industrious Labs. They're a research and analysis organization. They're doing campaigns and network and capacity building on decarbonizing all kinds of different industries. This is what they look like. And down there on the right, in particular, is a screenshot of their most recent report on the science and legislative perspectives on decreasing methane emissions from uh, landfills in California. So they have grown 35%. They're fully remote, but US based, and their research and promotion of that research seems to be what's driving their growth. That report on landfill methane emissions was a really good one. It was pretty sophisticated for being 20 pages long. It covered a lot of different angles and it got great press coverage. It got written up on Waste Dive, Canary Media, Biocycle, Waste Today, and other publications. They've got what looks like a great, an enviable partnership with RMI, formerly known as the Rocky Mountain Institute. What a great partnership on this California methane and other projects. And one of the things that seems to be driving a lot of their traction is a strong relationship with one leading media outlet in particular, that being Canary Media. They have Canary is a great daily publication and also connected to RMI. And they've gotten like 30 mentions now across Canary Media coverage of various issues, both for their original research and commenting on related news that they've got expertise on. So that seems to be working really well for them. All right. Next company is Altilium Clean Technology. They are doing critical metals from electric vehicle batteries, and this is their current branding here. They're on the left, you can see their homepage. On the right, you can see they just hit 50 employees. Uh, Yesterday, they posted screen or photos of their new factory down there in the bottom right that they're celebrating the creation of. And one of the things that stands out here is that homepage value proposition of, I mean, that is a domestic production focused value proposition. And it didn't used to be their primary focus. So at the end of last year, that homepage said sustainable low carbon battery materials. Now it says critical minerals made in Britain. And even though they are primarily backed by investors in Chile and Japan, their value proposition is domestic production of these critical minerals. And I always take note of that when companies decide to how they handle the balance between sustainability value proposition uh, and this kind of I don't want to call it nationalist, but domestic, you know, uh, yeah, that's a whole philosophical conversation. We certainly in our analysis of this space, there are a number of companies. I should have put this data in here. I just came across it by chance as we analyzed battery companies in particular. Many of them, you know, are focused now on get your batteries and battery materials here in your own country. Um, but the one part of the value proposition that gets talked about even more than domestic production is circularity. That's I'm happy to see. Altilium is doing a good job of having just real steady cadence of announcements. You know, if you work with a PR firm, for example, one of the things they say is every time you're planning one announcement, have the next one in mind to follow on shortly thereafter, and don't combine the two of them if you don't have to, because you want a steady cadence of announcements in the news. and they are doing a great job of that. They also did an interesting experiment with an auto industry influencer, if you will, who they brought in to do a video tour of their production facilities. And they were the only one of all of these companies that I've seen that has done that over the last couple of quarters. So I thought it was notable. All right, so that's what's working to help drive 33% increase in headcount from Altilium. Uh, let's move on. We've got two more companies that we're going to focus on. The next one is Soloxium, and I mean, they're a mining company essentially from mining waste and industrial waste. Really, really interesting company extracting uh, metals from liquid waste in industry, and they have grown 31%. So I had these all in order, but now, time is a dynamic thing. So a lot of companies here that we've tracked were growing super fast over Q1, and over the last couple of weeks, their numbers have changed just a little bit. So not in perfect order, but they're in Oxford, England. They're really focused on lowering the carbon footprint of extracting metals. And here's what they're doing that seems to be working. So first, they're hiring from the legacy industry in the mining world. And in particular, even though they are a small organization, they worked with a recruiting firm called Deep Tech Leaders to hire their new chief commercial officer, Richard Dixon, who came over from the mining industry. They were a case study for that recruiting firm, and that's a bold move. And yeah, a chief commercial officer is a prominent hire. So I thought that was real notable. They're also, speaking of bold, bringing politicians onto their site and taking pictures of with them with hard hats. In front of the chemicals and posting those on social media, and not conservative politicians. The whole world is wrestling with a dynamic where it's, is it cool to be a progressive politician? People in real commercial industries might be reticent, but we're not, and neither is Saloxian here. They had a real progressive member of parliament, Anna Turley, prominently all over their social media after she came and visited their facilities recently. And they have been raising both non-dilutive grants from local governments, and they just raised a £6 million seed round. So they're using mixed funding sources to help drive that growth of 31% over the last 6 months. All right. So, last company that we're going to feature today, number one, the fastest grower over the last 6 months is 2Zero. And they are a battery recycling startup led by two women co-founders. They're in Germany. They made a real big splash when with their recent extraction of uh, uh, brain. No, I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah. So 2Zero has grown 52% over the last 6 months in headcount, and they're in Munich, Germany. They are positioning themselves as Europe's leading startup in sustainable battery recycling. And the three key drivers of that growth over the last few quarters seem to be like really being in the sweet spot of growing demand around uh, electric vehicles with regulation requiring lithium recovery is the first key driver. They're also doing a lot of small, quick experiments, diversifying into different customer industries. So they're selling and building value chains and value propositions for the ceramics industry, for the construction industry, and they're hiring people. They've got, I believe, multiple open positions right now, specifically focused on researching the needs of their new customer segments. And then they've got a real high visibility, in particular, a high visibility technical co-founder. Their CTO is doing a lot of industry panels. Um, Interviews online, and they are able to both speak from the heart about their love of coral reefs in particular. Um, and why they are in circularity to protect the earth. And they're invoking traditional familiar innovation type metaphors like Nikola Tesla, Elon Musk, and Coca-Cola as metaphors in their storytelling. And that feels like a way. Not everyone is super intrinsically motivated to protect coral reefs and the oceans and the earth. But they're able to have one foot in that story and another foot in familiar innovation and commercial type metaphors. All right. So we did have we wanted to highlight these uh, honorable mention additional companies, Circuland, AirBuild, and Archive. That's just to put some imagery behind those names. Also, awesome companies in this big, broad world of circularity. There is I mean, on one hand, it shouldn't be a surprise to try to transform the entirety of the planet's economy into a circular model. Will inevitably, be a broad and complex field. I feel like we're just going over the surface of it, but I hope that going in this amount of depth with the companies that we have can prove useful. I want to pull out just some key summaries. The five things that seem to be most common among these companies are uh, regulatory support. They're timed at the right time, the right place with regulation in favor of circularity. They are really talking about and addressing sustainability concerns, but they also have a strong emphasis on the practical business value, especially of their B2B customers. They really are differentiating themselves with technology, even AI. I don't know if AI might seem cliche almost at this point, but it is a technology differentiator that seems to be driving success for these fastest growing circularity companies. They're really focused on strategic partnerships. So ask yourself what kinds of strategic partnerships you might be able to tap into if you want to model some of what's being done here. And they almost all of them are real commonly they have very clear, powerful narratives that make it easy to tell their story and to connect with them. So those are some of the common themes that I've seen here. I wish that I could have called out some of the outliers in particular that I saw, but I ran out of time and brain power. So that is it's been 1 hour, and we just got through that overview. So, thank you so much for joining us here today. I hope that getting a little bit of exposure to these companies in the sector that are growing fastest, seeing what seems to be working for them and what they're doing, will offer you some inspiration, some tools you can pluck out of their playbook and put into your own. We'll be sharing this presentation online, so you can go back and flip through it to review it. Um, and we would love to do more work in this space. So I think we may even have some conversations with folks, go refine this through a second layer of iteration, and then rerun this call and share this presentation again in greater detail. But let me pause here and ask Darby if I could ask you to let me know. I have not. I've been seeing little chat pop-ups, but I haven't been able to see what they are. Anything that we should address here before we move over into asking folks about their work?
I think it was mostly people thanking us for the research and time, and also that they had to jump because it was the top of the hour.
Yeah,
Uh, I've collected one specific question um, that I'm sure that we can follow up with offline from
great,
Will. Yeah.
great, fantastic. Good. Well, thank you. Well, folks, I would love, we got a little bit of introduction here, but I wonder if there is anyone who would like to come off mute, come on camera, say hello, and share what you're working on and what your any challenges in particular you're facing, to see whether we, the collective group, to see if we can point towards anything that could be useful in breaking through those challenges. Let me stop talking and invite you to do so.
I saw Michael Wright unmuted. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Darby.
Hello,
Hi,
Michael. I just
Michael.
turned off screen share, and now I'm able to see your face and see that you're. I'm so glad that you were able to join us and stay with us here for this time. How's it going?
It's going well. Biomedics International is getting off the ground. We're going to have our conference in November, the 2nd through the 5th. It's beginning to build. We've got some projects that are coming together. One of the things I'd like to offer is, we do a newsletter, and you do a newsletter, and do some cross-pollination here, where we can get out and feature, one or two of your, companies or people that, you think, hey, these guys need some exposure. We'll just add to it, post on our sites and stuff like that. But I think
That sounds great.
if you looked at Biomimetics International, what we're trying to do is get a voice for you, for everybody else, instead of, a bunch of silos. But, you do very specific things. The Biomimicry Institute does specific things. MIT has things. University of Arizona has things. Different companies have researchers and sustainability people and all that. But our goal has been to put everybody together and create a voice.
Will you tell us a little bit about your work there, Michael? Before you joined, we had a bunch of people go through and introduce themselves and their work a little bit, tell us where they're from, and
Yeah,
I would love for you to let folks on the call. We've got an international
sure.
crew here, and I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're doing there.
So it is. So what we're doing is several years ago, months now, but years. We So I came out of the semiconductor industry. I was president of a company called Integris, ENTG, on the Nasdaq. Um, and as part of that role, and prior to that role, even I was involved with SEMI. SEMI is the largest trade organization in the chip industry, and probably that makes it the largest technology association in the world. And so for many years, I was chairman of the International Strategy Symposium. So one of the things that did was get everybody in the room to solve problems. And when you're building stuff in an exponential world, and I wrote a book on it called The Exponential Era, but if you look at how things move, so every 2 years, the industry was doubling. Every 2 years, technologies are changing. Every 2 years, you have to invent stuff. We have to start much earlier than that. We made a transition from one size of wafer to another. That took almost 12 years. If you weren't in at the beginning and understood the standards and was working with everybody else, when the switch happened, you weren't in there. You're out of business. You don't play. Whether that was your equipment maker or a wafer maker or a chip maker or a facility builder or whatever, if you weren't involved, you didn't play. So what SEMI did was bring everybody together, and the industry strategy symposium was about getting the executives, the leaders from the various companies, from the various participants in the room and talk about where are we going, what's happening with the industry, all that sort of thing, and also to be a voice for it. So I left industry and I kept fooling around with things and I kept looking at this whole space. Mother Nature is the ultimate arbiter. Doesn't care what you believe. The forest fires that we're going to have, the floods that we're going to have, all those types of things, they don't care. So the issue becomes one, if nature is the ultimate arbiter, how do you play with nature? Because if you don't align with it, it will spit you out. It may not be this generation, might be 5 generations from now, but it will spit you out. So I sort of started thinking, well, gosh, there's all these different players and they make interesting, cute stuff, but they don't scale. They don't have an impact because they can't get from, wow, this is cool. We looked at nature, we did something, it isn't this sweet, and a few people buy it and hope that it goes somewhere. Hope's not a method. I mean, it's not a strategy. You have to do something. So the idea that we had was let's get the players in a room, let's create a voice, and let's create a place where we can have interactions around that. So if you're a large retailer and you go, my biggest issue is what am I going to do about plastic? Or my biggest issue is I have textiles that cotton production is going down and it's a water hog. What are the alternatives that won't put more than a teaspoon of plastic in my brain? For people that don't want to work on these problems, I guess one of the thoughts I have on that, or one of the ways I answer that, is you now have been shown to have about the same amount as a plastic spoon of microplastics running around in your brain. Are you willing to wait for it to be a spatula? Yeah. Or do you want to do something? So, so that's kind of the idea, but you can't do it if, well, I got this cool alternative. Well, yeah, but can it be 3D printed? How can it be produced? Where can it be produced? Can you look at nature like for scaling? Right now, we look at scaling as an example as build a big plant, make lots of stuff. Nature doesn't scale that way. Nature scales through replication through distribution. So now you say, well, okay, maybe we could scale on a local basis and just replicate this, whatever it is. But you can't do it if you don't have people in the room. And so that's been the whole idea. And it's a not for profit, it's a member organization. So the members kind of, will end up steering this where it goes, not me. I'm just the executive director and started it, right? But Sammy, by the way, started with two guys. So, I have hopes. So that's kind of what we're doing. And so we put out a newsletter probably every other week. Right now, we're in the process of just producing a few. If you go to the website and under Biomimetics International under content, we've got a few things we did at a conference last year. There's an overview there. But it's how do we move the conversation, and how do we move the voice of all the researchers and all the players and everybody that needs it so that we can get to the wicked problems. So I didn't mean to take up your time, but that's, you
No,
asked.
I really wanted to hear about it. And would you, I want to share the URL. Perhaps you can share the URL in chat there so that that anyone who uh, wants to click through and check it out can do so.
There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So yeah, so for me, it's fascinating, and I got here late. I did, but you are what you're doing is extremely important. Who are these players? How are they growing? They're real. They need they need air. They need oxygen, but you have to get the oxygen from the people that not only support them and interact with them, but the capital markets, the people that go, there might be something here. Well, they want a customer on the other end. So if I can get retailers in the room, it's a starting point.
Great.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you for sharing the link to what you're doing there. I feel like yeah, I want to have a conversation with you about that in particular, and I hope that that everyone else who is here with us will either find that literally to be an opportunity or metaphorically and methodologically as inspiration. So thank you. Wonderful. Well, I wonder. Thank you, Lindsay. Yep. I think
Thank you. I said thank you.
thanks, Lindsay. Thanks so much for joining us. I think we'll let us go here. We'll wrap this up for today. But I'm gonna uh, I so appreciate everyone joining us. I don't want to take up any more time, but we will send a follow-up email to everybody, and I hope that yeah, I hope we can all stay in touch and support one another's work. We're excited to meet you all and to be connecting.
Well said. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, take care. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us. Eugene, Germain,